The number one way that I recommend that you improve your life is through reading. Books can just open up so many doors for you. They're not only entertaining, they can be inspiring, motivating, educational, so many benefits. So today I want to share the 4 books that have had the biggest impact on my life when it comes to how I do things and how I think, how I go about life. So let's go. Hi guys, it's Laura and I will have these books linked for you in the description. I do want to say that if you are a member of this channel at the unicorn tier, then I will have an additional video for you. That is the 4 books that have very deep personal meaning to me. They are 4 books that just had a very profound impact on me, or in some way kind of shaped or molded my life, or kind of marked a very pivotal moment, like a milestone in my life. So yes, that is unicorn members only. But for today, let's jump into the 4 books that have had the biggest impact on my life when it comes to getting things done and how I approach things. I will say the thumbnail lied to you. I do not have all of these in physical format. 2 of them I have in digital format, so I will be showing you them on the Kindle app. I also want to say that I am going to go through these chronologically, so starting with the first book that I remember having the biggest impact on the way that I think. This completely changed my mindset, how I view the world. I was previously kind of a very pessimistic person, I guess, and this completely flipped my thinking. And that first book is Mind Gym by Sebastian Bailey, PhD, and Octavius Black. What a great name. This book, if you do tend to kind of think negative thoughts or just kind of veer on the more pessimistic side of life, this one is a game changer. I haven't read this one in a while. I know I did try to reread it a few years ago and it didn't have the same impact on me. So it's probably one of those things that you get the biggest impact when you read it the first time. But let me explain how this changed my thinking. Like I said, I was a very pessimistic person, and what this did for me was help me to realize that the negative thoughts that I had in my head, or the negative way that I perceived the world, was false. It was not based in reality. I'm going to give you a really silly example, okay? And this was a big eye-opener for me at the time, but it is kind of, looking back, it's a bit ridiculous. I grew up in Ireland, lived in Ireland, was born in Ireland. So I always thought, anytime I leave the house, it rains. And in Ireland, that's probably a reasonably accurate statement. But what this book, there was an exercise in the book that asked you to kind of really think about that and examine how true it was. How many instances of that were true. So what I started doing was every time I left the house, I started counting, how many times was it actually raining when I left the house and how many times was it not raining. And from there, I was able to see that actually most of the time when I left the house, it wasn't raining. It maybe sounds silly now, but that was such a big eye-opener for me at the time. And it made me think, okay, what else am I assuming, negatively, that just isn't based in reality? Now, that is just one of the exercises that this book goes into, but it really completely flipped my perspective upside down. And from the moment that I read this book, I just had a much more optimistic view of the world, and I started to challenge my negative thoughts a lot more. It's an international bestseller, so but this was a kind of, I guess, a double important book for me, because up until that point I had generally just been reading fiction, and then this one caught my eye in the library and it just looked really interesting, so I picked it up. And I guess this was probably the first book that sparked an interest for me in nonfiction, in kind of self-help, in mindset, personal development, all of that sort of stuff. So this book really, it's kind of where it all started for me. So yeah, really special book to me. Yep, I'm definitely going to reread that this year. Okay, this next one is also one that I picked up at the library. Support your local library, folks. But I loved it so much that not only did I go buy myself a physical copy, but then in the last year or 2, I went and bought myself a digital copy as well. Let me know if you were like this too. I cannot mark up a physical book. These people who like write notes in the margins and highlight and underline? I am not one of these people. I like my books to be pristine. So yes, I bought myself a digital copy so that I could highlight and make notes and all of that fun stuff. But if you've been around here for any length of time, this book will come as no surprise to you, but that is David Allen's Getting Things Done. As far as I'm concerned, this is the productivity Bible. This is where it's at. The system in this book just completely changed how I do things, how I plan. It's how I get so much done. Basically, now I will say I do not stick to this system rigidly, but it gave me a framework. It just gave me a whole different way of thinking about planning. Actually, this book is probably what really got me into planning, not kind of just general jotting things down in a planner, but serious planning and productivity. Oh, I just love it so much. If you are the smell of a book. But if you like things really simple, you know, very basic, and if you don't have a lot going on in your life, this may be too much for you. But if you have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of plates spinning, if you just really love writing lists and planning things and being meticulous, you're in for such a treat. Cannot recommend this enough when it comes to productivity and planning and getting things done. Oh, just love this one so much. Anyway, this next one you will already be familiar with. Again, if you have been here for any length of time, even if you've only been here a wet weekend, you've probably heard me talk about this book, and that is The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Completely revolutionized my home. It gave me more space, not just physically, but head space. This is a game changer. I first started hearing about the KonMari method about 6 or 7 years ago, you know, read a few articles, joined a few Facebook groups, and started doing the method before I had read the book. Thought I had a really good understanding of it because I had done a lot of research online. No, if you think that you are good at decluttering, you're good at, you know, keeping on top of things, no, not until you read this book. This changed things for me. I have always been, you know, interested in organizing and decluttering and keeping things tidy, but, you know, being interested in something and that actually reflecting your reality. No, I was living in filth at the time. This book changed everything, and it's a pretty short read, so I would say if you are interested in decluttering and you think that you can create more space for yourself and you haven't read this, give it a go. This book, not only did it kind of completely change how I live, completely change my home, completely change how I think about things, how I think about stuff, but it's possibly also responsible for the success of my YouTube channel, the success of my website, the success of How to GYST as a whole, because I first started talking about this about 6 years ago. You know, I started documenting my process, and this was before she had a Netflix show. This was before it was like trendy, before it was cool. And so when it did start to trend, I already had loads of videos already made on it, and yeah, everything kind of took off from there. So again, this is one of those books that has two special meanings for me. It changed my life on a day-to-day basis, but it also kind of changed my career. I owe so much to this book. Love it. Let me set the scene for this next book. About 3-ish years ago, I completely burnt out. We had moved over to the US. I had thrown myself into working, networking, just trying to do all of the things, set up a new home, continue running my business and growing my business, meeting new people, figuring out how everything worked, where everything was. And no. After a while, my body essentially shut down. It was a struggle to get out of bed in the morning. I felt no motivation to do anything. And yeah, it was really hard for me to go from really ambitious, driven, productive person to can't do anything. And that actually lasted for about a year. I was still getting work done, but I just was not performing at like my optimum levels. I was not performing the way I had been performing. This book changed that for me, and that is Cal Newport's Deep Work. This book is all about how to kind of intensely focus so that you can get loads done, because how many times have you sat down to do something and you are just distracted? your kids come in, your phone rings, there's a notification, something's happening outside your window, somebody else is making noise in your home, or you're just thinking about different things. This book completely changes all that. It talks about how important it is to do deep work. It talks about how you can do deep work, but really get in the zone. So when you are working, you're getting much more done. I read this book in bed, and it actually forced me, I would say, distractions like your dog barking. It motivated me to get out of bed and get back to work. This book pulled me out of burnout. So it's not only great for that, but the other way it helped me was that he talks a lot in the book about, you know, the distraction of social media. And he does have another book which I read after this book called Digital Minimalism, but it was, the foundations were kind of set in this book, all about how distracting social media is, still noise up there, and how distracting our phones are in general. And from reading this book, I cut way back on my social media usage. I deleted the Facebook app off my phone. I deleted the Twitter app off my phone. I set limits for how long I could spend on apps. It just revolutionized that side of things for me. So now, as a result of that book, I can focus a lot more when there isn't a puppy running around upstairs. I'm spending less time on social media, like less mindless time. I don't want to say that social media is all bad, but when you're just scrolling and not really thinking, there's no real purpose behind it. I've cut a lot of that out, a lot of it, not all of it. I'm only human, but a lot of it. That book, like I said, pulled me out of burnout, helped me to get back into the swing of work, but actually get good work done, like significant work, and to really, you know, focus and zone in on what I wanted to do. And then, just spend less mindless time on my phone. I've been sitting here trying to think of which of these books had the biggest impact on my life. You know, if I had to pick just one of them, and I can't. They have each had such a massive impact on my life in different ways, and have just completely changed my life in different ways. I would not be the person that I am today without these books. And yes, other books have, you know, been impactful. They have changed my life in kind of minor ways. They have improved my life in minor ways. But I feel like these are the 4 fundamental books that have completely flip things on their head for me. These are the books that have shaped my life, certainly my working life. But what is that book for you? What is that one book or multiple books that you read that just your life has not been the same ever since? But these books, you know, and the Kindle versions, they make up such a large part of who I am and how I live my life. Like I said, for kind of the books that changed me personally, that have had a deeply personal and profound impact on my life, that video is available for members at the Unicorn tier. But read these books, I implore you. Also, again, like I said, support your local library. But that's it for me for this week. Not even this week, there'll be another video coming later this week. But cara míle mágah, agus feici mé sibh se go luath. Slán!